Hello friends, in my previous few lectures I started with the factors that affect the quality of the medicinal plant during and post cultivation. In that I discussed that majority of the industrial demand of medicinal plants is fulfilled by supplying the material that is collected from the wild sources or the natural habitat, that is where the plant is growing naturally. I also discussed what are the problems that are being faced when we are supplying the material after collecting it from the wild sources. The problems were the irregular supply, increased chances of adulteration, over exploitation and non-sustainable collection leading to the genetic depletion of a particular species, and also making the plant species or the commercially important plant species vulnerable towards extinction. Then I discussed what are the advantages of cultivation of medicinal plants over the wild collection, and these advantages were uniform supply, uniform quality of the material that is being supplied to the industry, then conservation of the particular species which has been declared as endangered, and so on and so forth. I also categorized these factors broadly into two categories. One is the factors that affect the quality of the plant during cultivation and the factors that affect the quality after or the post cultivation processes. Now the factors that affect the quality during the cultivation, in that we discussed about that how soil type, including its particle size, its pH, its mineral content, and so on and so forth, how they affect the quality of the medicinal plant when they are cultivated. Then we discuss about the seed quality, the propagation method, altitude, temperature, and rainfall, how these factors have an impact on the overall quality of the medicinal plants during their cultivation. And we also discussed that the quality of the medicinal plants are assessed by and large on the basis of the content of the secondary metabolite that is being produced inside the plant, or the chemical constituent, the secondary metabolite for which that particular plant is being utilized. Since all these factors have a direct or indirect impact on the content of those secondary metabolites, we discussed all these factors with suitable examples. So friends, today I am going to start with the next factor, that is light or sunlight, or we can say the daylight. We all know that different plants have different requirement for light, but as a universal rule we can say majority of the plants, they require light for the normal occurring of the physiological processes that are going on inside the plant. And for example, photosynthesis is the most common process that occurs in almost every plant, and light is an important factor for the proper photosynthetic processes. And we know that photosynthesis leads to the production of certain primary metabolites, and these primary metabolites, they undergo various metabolic processes, thereby producing the secondary metabolites. And we also know that these secondary metabolites are the compounds or the chemical compounds produced by the plants which are responsible for the biological action for which that particular plant is known. Or in simple words, we can say these are the secondary metabolites, or these are the compounds which have a therapeutical benefit for humans. And therefore I said that the quality of the medicinal plants is also assessed in terms of the quality of the secondary metabolites. So we can say that the light can directly or indirectly impact the production of secondary metabolites inside the plants also. It has also been observed that it's not only the duration of the light to which the plant is exposed, but also the type or the quality of the light to which the plant is being exposed. We know that light contains a spectra which is having different wavelengths or different range of wavelength, and on the basis of the wavelength we can categorize light into different types like UV light, infrared light, red light or far red light, and so on and so forth. So depending upon the type of the light to which the plant is exposed, depending upon the type of the wavelength of the light to which the plant is exposed, the effect has been categorized. So different wavelength of the light has a different impact on the plant in terms of the secondary metabolite production, in terms of the morphological development of the plant. And therefore it is rightly said that light acts as an abiotic elicitor. Now elicitors are nothing but these are the compounds which can trigger certain processes inside the plant, and specifically they can trigger the synthesis of the desired secondary metabolites inside the plant. So light can act as an abiotic elicitor. Now the effect of light can be categorized into three parameters. One is the effect due to the quality of the light, what kind of spectral wavelength of the light we are exposing the plant to, that will have a different kind of impact. Then the quantity of the light, for how much duration or how much intensity of the light is being exposed to the plant, that also puts an impact on the overall quality of the plant in terms of its vegetative yield and also in the terms of the production of the secondary metabolites. And it has been observed that because a lot of technical advancements have been made, and now we have the sources which can provide the light beyond, or the intensity can exceed the light saturation point. Now light saturation point is nothing but it is the intensity of the light at which the photosynthetic rate is maximum per unit area of the leaf lamina. So now we can expose the plant with an intensity which exceeds far more than the light saturation point, and accordingly we have obtained certain beneficial results in that. And all these studies have been done obviously in the plant tissue culture studies. And the third aspect to measure the effect of light is photoperiodism, that is the effect of day to night time ratio, for how much duration the plant is exposed to daylight, for how much duration the plant is exposed to the night light or is grown in absence of light. So all these factors also have an impact on the overall growth as well as the production of the secondary metabolites in the medicinal plants. Now whenever the plant is exposed to the light is being absorbed by certain protein molecules that are present on the plant surface, and these protein molecules are known as photoreceptor proteins. And depending upon the type of the light or the type of the wavelength they absorb, the photoreceptors can be broadly categorized into 5 types. And amongst these 5 types, first 4 are the major ones. So these are the cryptochrome receptors, phytochrome receptors, phototropin photoreceptors, UVR8 receptors, and ZLUP receptors. And as I told you that cryptochrome, phytochrome, phototropin and UVR8 are the major photoreceptors that are found in the plants. Now it has been found that these photoreceptors are further connected to certain complex protein molecules inside the plant, which further regulate the expression of the genes that are responsible to carry out the normal physiological functions as well as various metabolic pathways inside the plant. Therefore, they have an impact on the overall vegetative growth of the plant and also on the production of the secondary metabolite, because some of those complex protein also regulate the genes that are responsible for the stimulation or the activation or inhibition of certain enzymes that are responsible or that play a key role in the important metabolic pathways that are being carried out inside the plant body. So first one is the cryptochrome type of photoreceptors. Now cryptochrome photoreceptors are nothing but these are flavoproteins which have 2 subtypes, Cry1 and Cry2, and these 2 subtypes further regulate the expression of the genes, namely Cry1 and Cry2 genes, which are responsible for controlling some of the morphological aspects as well as some of the metabolic pathways which lead to the production of specific type of secondary metabolites. Now cryptochrome photoreceptors, they absorb UVA and blue light having a wavelength range of 340 to 520 nanometers. So as I told you, they control certain morphological factors or growth factors of the plant. So whenever the plant is exposed to the light falling in this wavelength range, the cryptochrome receptors, they get activated, and they induce certain genes, or they regulate or they trigger certain genes which bring out certain morphological changes, such as enhanced plant growth, specifically the growth of the roots, stem elongation, as well as the increase in the size of the fruit. Further, it has also been seen that if the seeds are exposed to this particular wavelength range, then this kind of light stimulates the development of seedlings from the seed. So early seedlings also occur whenever the seeds are exposed to this kind of wavelength. Now this type of light also controls the opening of the guard cells, thereby controlling or affecting the overall gaseous exchange that is occurring in the plant, thereby also affecting indirectly on the normal physiological functions that are being going on inside the plant cells. This type of light also affects the early flowering in the plant, because it controls the photoperiodic flowering of the plants and hence stimulates the flowering in the plants. And in terms of the production of secondary metabolites, whenever the plant is exposed to this wavelength, that is 340 to 520 nanometers, it has been found that it stimulates the accumulation of anthocyanins inside the plant cells. Now these anthocyanins are nothing but these are the polyphenolic pigments that are responsible for providing different types of colors to the plants, to their flowers. And obviously these anthocyanins, since these are polyphenolic compounds, these are also responsible for a potent antioxidant action. Next type of receptors is the phytochrome receptors, and these phytochrome receptors are nothing but these are the hydrophilic protein which absorbs light in the red or the far red region in a wavelength range of 665 to 730 nanometers. Now in addition to far red or red light absorbed by these receptors, they also absorb small amount of blue light or the light falling in the near UV region. So whenever the plant is exposed to the light falling in this region, these phytochrome receptors, they get activated and they further trigger the expression of the genes that control the morphological effects like the size of the plant, shape and the number of the leaves of the plant. Obviously they increase the size of the leaves, they increase the number of the leaves that are occurring on the plant. So if a plant is utilized for its leafy part, then obviously these kind of exposures with the light falling in 665 to 730 nanometer has been found beneficial. Further, this type of light has also shown to decrease the flowering time. Now the light absorbed by phytochrome not only has an impact on the morphological aspects of the plant, but it also leads to certain physiological effects by altering the levels of the phytohormones, which are also known as plant growth regulators. And namely gibberellic acid is there, abscisic acid is there, auxins are there. So these types of lights falling in 65 to 730 nanometers, they have an impact on the altered I will say physiological effects of these hormones, and they also lead to the increase in pigmentation of the plant. Third type of the receptor is phototropin receptors, and these are also known as blue light receptors. Now phototropin receptors have further two subtypes, PHOT1 and PHOT2, and they absorb light in the range of 340 to 520 nanometers, same as that of cryptochrome. So majority of the effect produced by the light in this wavelength is same as that of the effect produced by the light which was absorbed by the cryptochrome receptors. So whenever the plant is exposed to this wavelength of light, it has a direct and indirect optimization of the photosynthetic process. It leads to the elongation of the stem, thereby increasing the vegetative yield of the crop. It also leads to the opening of the stomata, thereby disturbing the gaseous exchange. Now the PHOT1 receptors, has been found to be effective at low light intensity, whereas FOT2 receptors, they act on the high intensity lights. But it has also been found that whenever FOT1, that is the subtype of phototropin receptors, get activated, the small portion of FOT2 receptors also get activated along with FOT1. Therefore, they have a great impact on the morphological aspects of the plant. Fourth type of the receptor is UVR8 or UVB light 8 receptors, and they largely absorb UVB light falling in the range of 280 to 350 nanometers. Now, it has been found that this type of UV light causes induction of oxidative damage inside the plant cells, because it largely produces oxidative stress inside the plant cells, thereby causing the oxidative damage. And since this light induces the oxidative stress inside the plant cell, by virtue of their defense mechanism, the plant cells, they stimulate the production of the antioxidant secondary metabolites or the antioxidant metabolites, or in other words, simple words, we can say that the chemical compounds which protect the plant against this kind of oxidative stress are produced in larger concentration whenever the plant is exposed to UVB light. And we know that these antioxidant chemical compounds are also beneficial for mankind, because by virtue of their antioxidant effect, these are used widely in treatment of various kinds of disorders. Further, this type of UVB light also influences the morphological aspects of the plant, wherein it has been found that whenever the plant is exposed to UVB light, the overall size of the plant is more compact, size is less in comparison to the plant which is grown under normal light condition, stem elongation is less, but the leaf expansion, the size of the leaf is more, but the spreadability of the leaves is less. So we can say that whenever the plant is exposed to UVB type of light, it leads to the plants which have more compact growth, but they are rich in the antioxidant metabolites. Now I will discuss certain examples wherein it will be pretty much clear that how the light affects on overall production of the secondary metabolites in the plant. So in different studies, different plants were used, and it was found that whenever Lactuca sativa is nothing but the common garden salad leaf which we normally grow in our kitchen gardens, whenever the Lactuca sativa crop was exposed to sunlight for longer duration, it leads to the increased accumulation of anthocyanins, and anthocyanins, as I told you, these are nothing but the pigments. So we can say that whenever the Lactuca sativa crop was grown in bright sunshine for longer duration, the leaves were much more greener in comparison to the crop that was grown under the shade conditions. Likewise, whenever the Beta vulgaris, that is beetroot or commonly known as chakundar, is grown under sunlight in greenhouse, it leads to the increased carotenoid production. Now carotenoid is nothing but these are the chemical compounds that are responsible for the dark red color of the beetroot or the Beta vulgaris, and these carotenoids are known for their potent antioxidant effect even in humans. So that is why it has been found that the carotenoid production increased many folds whenever Beta vulgaris is grown under sunlight. Likewise, different other plants like alkaloidal plants, specifically like Datura stramonium, Atropa belladonna, different species of cinchona, whenever they are grown under bright sunshine, the overall alkaloidal content was found to be increased many-fold in comparison to the plants that were grown in shade. Then Mentha piperita, we all know that Mentha piperita is a commercially important plant and is largely used for its menthol content, and menthol is largely used in perfumery industry, in food industry, and so on and so forth, because it's a very good taste masking agent. So higher the menthol content in the Mentha piperita, better is the quality of the Mentha piperita. So if Mentha piperita is grown under long light conditions, long light durations or light hours, it has been found there has been an increase in the menthol content. Whereas if the same plant is grown under the shorter light conditions or the shorter light duration, the menthol content decreases and there is higher menthofuran content. Or in simple words, I will say, if the Mentha piperita is grown under shade conditions, then the overall quality of the Mentha piperita decreases. Similarly, whenever Vinca rosea or the Sadabahar plant is exposed to the UV light falling in the range of 290 to 380 nanometers, it enhances the synthesis of the dimeric alkaloids. And these dimeric alkaloids, we know that like vincristine, vinblastine and other dimeric alkaloids, and these dimeric alkaloids are the major bioactive alkaloids that are present in the Vinca rosea, or these are the alkaloids that are responsible for the anti-cancer activity of this plant. So whenever the Vinca rosea plant is exposed to a UV light falling in the range of 290 to 380 nanometers, the overall production of these biologically active alkaloidic compounds, it increases many folds. In this picture, you can clearly see the effect of light on the poppy plant, that is Papaver somniferum. And we know that the latex of Papaver somniferum is largely used for the morphine alkaloid. Morphine is a very good centrally acting analgesic. So whenever Papaver somniferum plant is exposed to higher temperature and higher light intensity, the morphine get converted into its methylated derivatives, that is, the methylation of morphine increases. But if the plant is exposed to lower light intensity and lower temperature, then the methylation is inhibited and you get the pure morphine content in the latex of the plant. This was just another example that how light affects the production or the accumulation of the secondary metabolites in the plant. And it's not only the sunlight, that is the light in the range of 400 to 700 nanometer, but it has been found that whenever the plant is exposed to UVB type of radiation, which induces oxidative damage in the plant, it also leads to the enhanced production of certain useful secondary metabolites in some of the plants. Like by and large, it has been found that it increases the flavonoid or the anthocyanin content in different plants. So whenever Ocimum basilicum leaves are exposed to UVB radiation, it has been found that the plant increases the production of phenylpropanoids, and these phenylpropanoids are a wide class of secondary metabolites which include flavonoids, coumarins, then lignans and so on and so forth. And apart from that, the oil content of the Ocimum basilicum leaves also were found to have high terpenoidal content. On the contrary, whenever Capsicum annum was exposed to UVB radiation, it was found that there is a decreased production of the flavonols in the plants in comparison to the plants which were grown under only the normal visible light, that is 400 to 700 nanometers. So friends, this was about that how light has an impact on the overall growth of the plant, and more importantly on the production of the secondary metabolites, a parameter which is important to assess the quality of the medicinal plants, specifically in terms of the pharmaceutical industry, wherein the industry is preparing various therapeutic formulations, therapeutic drugs from these plants. So if the plant is lacking the desired secondary metabolite, then obviously the overall biological effect of the product that is being prepared by the industry would be quite less in comparison to the plant which is having higher content of the secondary metabolite. So friends, in the continuing lecture, I will be discussing the other factors that will affect the quality of the medicinal plants. Thank you.